Here's a review video. It's going to help you with your 13B chapter review for Algebra 2 CP. 13B is all about law of sines and law of cosines. So if you know those two laws and how to use them, you're going to be successful. And there's a few tips that I want to make sure that I touch on that hopefully will help you to be successful as possible with this section. First is the law of sines. Just, if you're not familiar with it, here it is. The law of sines works in certain cases where you don't have a right triangle, but you have a specific combination of sides and angles. Okay? The combinations of sides and angles that this works for are if there are two sides and one angle across from one side, so side-side angle. Any situation where there are two angles in one side will work. Okay? And that's basically about it. The other situations, side angle side or side side side, you're going to need the law of cosines for. So these are your three situations in which the law of sines will work. Okay? What you need for the law of sines to be successful, to be able to do it, is an angle and its opposite side. You need one ratio, one of these three ratios that you see here. So let's look at an example. All right. It says for number 6 on your review, it says given A is equal to 10 degrees, B is equal to 60 degrees, and angle A, or side A is 7.5. Use the law of sines. Tells you what to use. Use the law of sines to find C, B, little b, and little c. Okay, so what you see here and what's nice is you have that ratio. Okay, you have that side and the angle opposite, and that's key. If you want to use law of sines, you're going to need that. Okay, that's the one thing that you're definitely going to be able to, or gonna have to have if you want to use law of sines. So when I do this, I just set up some equations. The first thing I can do though is I could find angle C, because you know two angles in a triangle, you know the third. If two angles are 10 and 60, the third angle is 110. So that's what you're going to say. Say so 180 minus 10 minus 60 is 110. So in this particular problem, I'm going to find angle side B first. And the setup is simple. It's just the sine of A over little a, sine of 10 over 7.5 equals the sine of B, 60, over little b. The only variable in the problem is little b. Cross multiply and solve. So these are just proportions when you solve by cross multiplication. So 7.5 sine 60 equals b sine 10. All right, I'm going to divide by sine 10. Okay, and you get b equals 7.5 sine 60 divided by sine 10. So now I pull out my calculator, and it's going to be 7.5 sine 60 divided by the sine of 10. And don't evaluate stuff in the middle of the problem. Wait till the very end, and you'll get it as an exact answer as you possibly can. So in this case, 37.4 degrees, or not degrees, 37.4 would be B. Okay, so B is 37.4. So the only thing I have left to find in this particular problem is C. Okay, and C should be the biggest, and we're going to see if it works out. So to find C, I can't just do Pythagorean theorem. If you're like, oh, I got B and A, I'm just going to do A squared plus B squared. No. It's not a right triangle. That's why we're using law of sines. If it were a right triangle, you just use SOHCAHTOA. There'd be no reason to do law of sines. So in this case, I'm going to use the same ratio. I'm going to use my sine of 10 over 7.5. But now I'm going to do sine of C, 110, over little c. So I cross multiply. I get C sine 10 equals 7.5 sine of 110. Divide by sine of 10. And now I can cancel out. And I get 7.5 sine. This over here, 7.5 sine of 110. Divided by the sine of 10. And you get 40.58 or 40.6, we'll call it 40.59. All right, and my tip to you here is to take a quick check. Okay, so then I got C is 40.59. Okay, take a quick check and look at what you got. Okay, is your biggest side opposite your biggest angle? Okay, my biggest angle is C. My biggest side is C. That makes sense. Is my smallest side opposite my smallest angle? Yeah, and A is the smallest side. Angle A is the smallest angle. That's a real quick way to know, am I on the right track? Because if those two things, if those are not true, then you know something went wrong. Okay, so that's a real quick way to know biggest sides, biggest angles. So once again, I'll just write it down so you can see. But check that your big sides match up the big angle. Okay. And then likewise, that's just big side. Matches up with the big angle, and then likewise your small side and small angle. Okay, if those things don't match up, something went wrong. Go back, check your work. Okay, that's how you would solve it using law of sines. Next, we're going to talk about law of cosines. Okay, the other thing from 13B, chapter 13B, was law of cosines. The law of cosines is a manner in which you can find missing sides and angles in situations where the law of sines breaks down. Okay, these two situations are side angle side relationships and side relationships. Okay, when you have side angle side, you can't do law of sines. For instance, if I said this was 35 degrees, this was 10, and this was 12, there'd be no way to set up a ratio to use law of sines. Like if I want to do like sine of 35, I don't have little a. You know what I mean? If I wanted to do either of the other ratios, I don't have them. So point being, get rid of that stuff. Point being, all right, I'll just leave it there. Point being, there's situations where law of sines works and situations where law of cosines works. And here's, situations where law of cosines are side angle side and side. I wanted to look at a side because there is one thing that a lot of students do with these type of solving questions that they should not. So law of cosines, when I'm looking at this, typical thing you want to do is you want to find the biggest angle first. And I'm just going to find angle C, and I'm going to talk about it a lot and how you set up the law of cosines to find angle C. But if I'm going to find angle C, I'm going to set up the equation like this, okay? I got C, I got A, I got B. I don't have big C. I don't have the angle. So the way that you solve this is simply by finding these missing pieces, or putting in all the pieces so that you could find angle C. So at this point, a lot of people see a whole bunch of numbers here. A lot of students, I should say, see a whole bunch of numbers there, and you want to combine them. Okay, those numbers are not combinable. Okay, let me just say that again. Those are not combinable. All right, this is one term that's attached to a variable, and this, you can think of as another term. Those are the only things you can't combine. So I got to subtract 9 squared plus 12 squared from both sides and divide by -2 times 9 times 12 to get cos C by itself. So what I'm going to do this in my calculator, and I get 16 squared. That's 256, and I get 9 squared plus 12 squared. All right, so I get 256 here, 225, and then I'm going to say 2 times 9 times 12, okay? And that's going to give me 216. So now that I've got it broken down a little bit, hopefully you can see a little bit more clearly that you can't combine. A lot of students want to say 225 minus 216. Do not do that, okay? You've got to get this 225 out of there. These are not like terms, okay? And I always say this. If you had like 10 equals 5 minus 2x, okay? You wouldn't say 10 equals 3x. They're not like terms. It's kind of like that same concept, okay? In this particular case, 225 minus 216 cos C. I'm not going to say 225 minus, 216 is 9 cos C. You're not going to do that. You're going to get the 225 out of there, and then you're going to continue to solve. So 256 minus 225 gives me 31. So negative 216 cos C divided by negative 216. So then I get cos C equals 31 over 216. Negative 216 is 31 divided by negative 216. So give me negative 14, or negative 0.144. And now I want to find angle C, so I got to do second cos. So C is going to equal the inverse cosine of negative 0.144. So second cos of that answer gives me 98.25. So C equals 98.25 degrees. and that would be my biggest angle. And it makes sense that it would be the biggest. It's got to be because it's bigger than 90. So that's how you would solve it. A couple tips there again. Don't combine unlike terms, please. Do not combine 225 and 216. They're not like terms, okay? 216 is attached to the cos-c. So you got to get rid of that 225 before you do anything. Okay, so moving along. One word problem I wanted to talk about, and you can expect to see a side angle side situation on a test. But if you see side angle side, we just talked about it. If you see side angle side, that's the law of cosines. So in this particular question, points A and B are on opposite sides of Lake Larson. From a third point C, the angle is 67 degrees. Okay, if AC is 517 and BC is 822, then you want to say find the length of AB and round to the nearest decimal. So the easiest way to do this is call these by what they are. This is little b because it's opposite that angle. This is little a because it's opposite this angle. And then I want to find little c. Okay, this is a law of cosines question because it's a side angle side relationship. Okay, so when it's a side angle side relationship, I know it's law of cosines. So the setup is going to be c squared like this. Okay, I'm trying to find little c. I know everything in this particular setup except little c. I got little a is 822, little b 517, minus 2, 822, 517, cosine of 67. Okay, in my calculator, I type it exactly like it looks, and it's c squared. So I'm going to take 822 squared plus 517 squared minus 2 times 822 times 517 times the cosine of 67. All right, and that's not my answer. That's my answer squared. So I'm going to write it. So it's 610, 871.8. 610, 871.8. So to find the full answer, you square root that number. So it's going to be second square root second negative will give me the answer back, and it's 781.6. It says round to the two decimals, so we'll call it 781.58. All right, since we're talking about meters, that's how far across the lake we would be talking. Okay, so it's a word problem involving law of cosine side angle side relationship. So just real quick recap of law of sines, law of cosines. Hopefully that helps you with these particular problems.